All right, welcome everybody. Welcome to our webinar today. So excited to have everybody on. Let me go ahead and get my slides going so that we have everything ready to go here. All right. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Here we go. Great. All right. And let me go ahead and take a moment and have everyone join in. All right, welcome everybody to our live webinar today. I'm so excited to have everybody on. Want to do some quick hellos to everybody that's joining. Hi, Dipali, Jitendra, Nidhi, Priya, Vikas, and Advika, and of course, Jeff. Glad to always have you on as well. I know tonight is a night I'm going to be talking about two different types of topics. One is going to be around cracking the Ivy League code. We're going to have a special guest speaker as well. And then I'm also going to talk a little bit about a part of me that I don't always share, but I think it's really important in this type of work, especially around this time of year, around how do we energetically reset our views and our perspectives around the admissions process and really create a loving and wonderful environment that helps to really bring opportunities into your life. And so I'm going to share a little bit of that. And that's something that we do infuse at College Shortcuts and who we are. Now, before we get started, what I'd like to do is in the chat, just to make sure everything is working, please type in what grade your student is in. Or if you are a student, please type in what grade you are in. And that way I can kind of also kind of make this more tailored. Okay, so I see we've got different grades from 11th grade, we've got 8th grade, 7th grade, 10th grade, another 11th grader. Okay, great. All right, so we've got a lot of different grades here from as early as 7th grade all the way through 11th, in terms of, high school to middle school, which is really great. All right, great. So let's go ahead and jump right in. So my name is Neha Gupta. I'd also love to hear from you on how you heard about us. Was it a referral, a family friend? Was it Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn? Let me know where you found us. Great to see this. All right, 8th and 9th grade, got two. All right, so we see a lot of people here. And then also and everyone, if we can go ahead and put yourself on mute. Thank you, Kaden. No problem there. That would be great. So yeah, it looks like a lot of people found us online. And what I want to start off with is just sharing a little bit about where College Shortcuts was born and how it got started. So to give you a sense, I've been doing this for over 15 years. This is what I do every single day, which is helping students to really unlock their true potential, figure out who they are, build the right life skills around it, and get them into the college of their dreams. And so when it comes to specifically the admissions process, we've been at this for so long at College Shortcuts. We've seen what works and what doesn't work. And I think the big part about admissions is that a lot of people think there's some perfect formula that helps students to get in. And I think on our end, we have seen, yes, are there certain qualities and certain aspects that need to happen? Absolutely. Is there ways things can be formatted? Essays can be written? Yes, absolutely. But is there a perfect, exact cookie cutter formula? There's not. Every student is different. And so colleges are looking for different things. And the process that I have to tell you about when it comes to college admissions is that it is one of the hardest parts of the admissions process. Students need to focus on their academics through high school. They need to focus on their test scores. They have to write lots of admissions essays, and they have to build a solid resume starting immediately. So for my parents that are saying, is this too early in 7th and 8th grade? It's really not. We're dealing with a new generation of souls who are more interested in figuring out what they want to do than ever before. You are no longer looking at the student that says, I can't wait to get a 50-year job at an oil company or an IT firm. This is a person that may be jumping different careers or different job titles or starting something on their own. And so they are really in search, in a way, of finding their interests. And what we've found is that in many cases, students go through high school with very little to no direction. And the reason why I feel this way is because if you look at the current education model, especially with AI getting infused, people are seeing that taking a math class, science, history class, a lot of times people are focused on really getting through the content, the tests that are required, the curriculum that they want to see, instead of focusing in on what do you actually want to do? How does this relate to the real world? And why does this even matter? And so you've got a large group of teenagers here that are really wanting to quench their thirst of interests. And instead, they're trying to just get an A. And so when students are trying to get through high school with little to no direction, and we know that parents now in today's world are investing upwards of $200,000 into a college or a major they may not have interested in. That is a huge amount. To give you a sense, college tuition has doubled in the last 15 years. And so this is a very important investment to most families. And so our goal at College Shortcuts is to really help guide students from high school to college. And sometimes now that starts obviously in middle school too, but we pair them with like-minded mentors who you will be meeting today on this call. I do have a mentor who will be joining us, who has helped many students get into Ivies, not only herself, having gone to Harvard and Columbia, but also she's going to share her experience of what it's like to work at College Shortcuts and what she has done and what has worked just even in the last round of admissions. So we're very excited to also have her join on today. Um, so in terms of College Shortcuts, our team is to really pair people with like-minded mentors who can really encourage and guide them through this process. And our belief is when we guide students and we help them to figure out internally what it is they truly desire and want in their life, it makes the process feel a lot more enjoyable. And I'm going to get into that a little bit later today. But I want to talk about a little bit about some of the things we're seeing in the admissions process, as well as with some data. Now, a little background about us: we have been around the block for quite a few years. And so we've been featured for my South Asian parents. We've been featured in things like Indo American News, Voice of Asia. We've been featured in many major news outlets. The US News World Reports and Ranking loves us. We've got Entrepreneur Magazine. I've had full page spreads in there, ABC News, Fox, CBS, Vanity Fair, Parents, and you name it, we've been there. We've been very much involved, and we want to let you know that in today's webinar, a lot of what we're going to share with you, if you are sitting and listening, I highly recommend taking notes as I talk if there's something that really stands out to you, because students or parents that really listen to this can really be in the top 1% of the admissions process, because 99% of competition usually don't really hear this or think about these processes and really until it's too late. So let's talk about the biggest problem in admissions. One of the biggest problems in admissions, and I know the school systems are doing the best they can, but there's 500 students on average to one counselor. And so on average, they're spending 38 minutes, with each student per year. And in my opinion, if I'm going to invest more than six figures into something, I'm going to want to spend more than 30 minutes figuring out what that is. And in this case, most of those counselors are either focused on shuffling papers. Okay, what class do you need for next year? Or letter of recommendation, sure, let me check that off. Instead of spending gobs of time like we do with our students, upwards of 24, 48, 50, 100, 200 hours, figuring out what the student actually loves to do and building that narrative. And so we have an issue of thousands of students that are in the school system that want to do similar majors. In our case, we tend to attract a student that is highly driven, not very different from me. To give you a little background, I went to top private schools. I went to Rice University. I went to UPenn. And I was at the top of my class, did all honors AP. So typically, our students tend to be very similar to me. These are driven kids. They really want the best, but they're maybe not sure what they want to do, or if they are, they haven't really shown it properly. They tend to also be, if you've got a student who's interested in STEM majors or computer science or business, engineering, These are the types of students that have the hardest in the admissions process. And there's troves and troves of students applying for these types of majors, yet they all look the same. And the counselor here, this one little person, cannot go through in detail what the student actually needs for the investment you're really about to make. So I want to give some data because I think sometimes what happens, and I hear this all the time. I was at a Super Bowl party with a bunch of parents of actually 10-year-olds. So for my seventh grade parents on the line that think they're early, Jitendra, you are not early. Jenny Chung, you're not early either. And here's why. I've got people considering moving to different school districts to ensure their kids at a certain rank to get in and their kids 10. So you are not early in the process to be thinking about this. I hear parents that are in their 40s and 50s that applied to college in the 90s and early 2000s. And they're like, I got into an Ivy. I don't get what's so hard. So I wanted to pull some data for you so you can understand what's happening. If you look at the early 2000s, this is pre-iPhone. This is dot-com boom. This is pre-Uber. This is around maybe MapQuest launching, you know. This is when parents would go on trips with a map and figure out where they're trying to go and fight over navigation. I grew up in that childhood time. Okay, so I remember a time before the digital age, before this Zoom, before I could talk to people from all over the world. And during that time, when people applied to college, they hand wrote their essays or used a typewriter. They mailed it. They walked or drove over to a mailbox and they submitted it in an envelope. So let's talk about how many people did that. Harvard University had about 18,000 applicants. That's roughly an 11% acceptance rate. From 18,000, we have 54,000 students applying in this past year with an acceptance rate of less than 3%. I'm going to skip down. If you take a look here, or even the next one, Yale, 14,000 students used to apply, 13% acceptance rate. Today, 52,000 students are applying, 3.7% acceptance rate. These are competitive schools. I'm not saying that we only work with kids of this type of school, but I'm telling you that we tend to have students apply to competitive schools. So we see usually these types of rates. But I want to talk about schools that, may not have always been considered that competitive. UCLA, 40,000 students used to apply, 27% in the early acceptance rates. That's almost 1 in 3. Today, 139,000 students are applying to UCLA with a 14% acceptance rate. Now, 14% is not bad. I mean, it's 1 in ish 10, but that number of 139,000 shows there's an increase. And a lot of parents are like, how are there more humans? What's happening? If you look at birth rates as well, there were more children that were born, but also the focus on going to college has changed in the last 25 years. And so I think it's important to look at this data to understand how important it is to really see why it's so different in the admissions process today versus when most of our parents were applying. Now, type in the chat if you did go to college here, and I mean undergrad specifically. And if you did not, it's perfectly fine. A majority of our families that we work with didn't go to US colleges. And so they're navigating this process and they are confused why it is so competitive. But you can see that when you're looking at these highly competitive schools, on average, the application rates are upwards to 55 to 60,000 applicants. And I think it's really important to note that this is what is making it very challenging when you look at the admissions process. So some key insights here. The number of applications have clearly more than doubled. Acceptance rates have plummeted. Cornell, for example, my husband went to Cornell and he always says, I got into Cornell. I'm like, yeah, you had a 30% acceptance rate. Must have been nice. And now it's less than 7%. Princeton, Yale, Columbia are now at single digit rates, and we're going to continue to see that. There are schools that were what we called no-name schools back in the day that today are hard to get into. People think schools, if you talk to most people in their 40s and 50s, they'll say University of Florida, Northeastern, Emory. Like some of these schools that were considered average schools are now hard to get into. And so I want to talk about some of the big mistakes that we consistently see in the admissions process. Number one, the most problematic thing that I see over and over is that people only focus on their grades and they think that's all that matters. They lack a narrative or a solid resume. They don't have clear angle or pitch on who they are and what matters. And then they walk into the admissions process at the 58,000 students that are applying. And you better believe out of that 58,000, there's probably at least 2,000 valedictorians, 3,000 perfect GPAs, probably 1,000 perfect SAT scores. And so when you've got only 2,900 spots, that's not the only thing that matters. If you've got every kid applying to be computer science, that's not always great either. So the thing I want to share is that it is a stressful process, and I know it can be very challenging. And there is a rise of competitiveness, and we only expect to see it get harder. For example, University of Texas, a state school out of Texas, in Austin, their auto acceptance rate 20 years ago was top 10%. Today it's going to be less than the top 5% are auto acceptance. And you and I both know top 10% at a top private school, for example, they are phenomenal. Um, top 10% at many schools are phenomenal students. They're hardworking, driven. They should be auto admit, but there's just not enough spots anymore. So this is a big thing that I think we don't look at the data and numbers. And so we just make a lot of assumptions about things. And we're just like, oh, things will be different for me, or things can be like, I'm special. But the truth of the matter is, numbers are numbers and they usually don't lie. And this is what happens when it comes to the admissions process for a lot of people. But I want everyone to take a minute, and I kind of want to change the tone of this. And I want to take a deep breath and kind of set an intention for why we're here today and how we can create magic together. Because I do believe that yes, data is real. And I do believe that yes, competition is hard. But I can tell you at College Shortcuts, every single day we get students into top schools, every day. And what I want to do is share about how we do that and what are ways that you can really improve your chances when it comes to the admissions process. I think the big part to realize too is that it really boils down to, in my opinion, energy and how you're feeling and um, passion and interest. And I think a lot of people really don't think about the other side. A lot of times we focus heavily on just specifically the numbers and the data and the difficulty and like all of that. But magic happens. I mean, whenever we think about even for a person to be born, it's like a 1 in a billion chance for a child to be born. So, from my perspective, I really do feel that there's a lot that can happen when it comes to the admissions process. And I really want to share actually with somebody here on our webinar, Daya, who has just joined on. Daya is one of my favorite consultants on my team. Daya is a phenomenal person who has also gone to Ivy Leagues and she works with students, and she's also been doing this for a long time. And Daya, I'm so welcome. I'm so like proud to have you on today because I think for a lot of families, they don't know about us. They find us online. They're not sure if we're real people, who we are. And so Daya, I'd love for you to, and we're not going to say the student's name because just out of privacy, but there was a student we got into last year into an Ivy League institution. They were referred by us by a family out of the Northeast who we got their kid into the UPenn Vagelos program. And so they sent the student to us, and we're now working with the second sibling. But this was like their cousin, family friend. And I know that in her early decision round, we got the email that she got into her top university. And so I'd love for you to share a little bit about from your experience of being a consultant on our team. Maybe answer the question of like, first, let's start off with that student and what happened. And then I'll ask a few other questions about what that process was like.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Neha, and hi, everyone. Nice to be here. So yeah, I'll start off with that student story, which was a really great experience working with her. Like many of our students, she's very talented, very driven. And I think for her, she had a great list of extracurricular activities and a great resume, and as well as a great academic profile. And for her, it was all about pulling the pieces together because I don't think even she had realized until I kind of helped her work through and verbalize what her the theme of her application was and what her interests and passions were. She kind of even thought of it as being very scattered. She was like, well, I'm interested in healthcare and I'm interested in like women's rights and I'm interested in like these other things. And they all seemed very disparate. And I was looking at her activities with her and we through, discussions, we kind of realized that um, what pulled us all together was really an interest in like women's health and as we were talking about it, you could just see her light up. And she was like, yes, that's absolutely right. That is like what I'm interested in. And so from there, we kind of started to, pull those threads together throughout the application and really like make it clear like what she thought her contribution could be, both to the university, but also, what she wanted to do with her life, at least as it stands right now, and how she wanted to contribute. So it was really about like this discussions, like kind of pulling all those pieces together. So what seemed like a very scattered kind of narrative really came together very clearly and really allowed her to talk about her passion really deeply.
Absolutely. And I think that's the big thing too, is that you can have a resume that's really incredible, but if you do not have that theme together, it's really hard for an admissions officer to know why you're here and what you want. Um, and from the perspective of being a consultant on my team, I would love for you to share a little bit about what it is that you do with students that I think for a lot of parents here, we've got parents of seventh graders, eighth, ninth, 10th, 11th graders, and they're probably curious. And I'll talk later a lot about what College Shortcuts does and what our services are. But I'd like for you to share from your own personal experience of working with us. What is it like as a consultant when you are working with students? And why is this so important in a child's journey that we may not see at even a private or public high school as the level of service that we believe that the student should have?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the reality, as many of you parents know, is that schools today, they're slammed. People just don't have enough time to really like have these conversations. And so counselors often like expect the student to come in with like an already like developed idea of like where they're applying, what they're doing, and things like that. And so the support in navigating all of that, I think, is really important. And even for younger ages, like support in exploring their interests, and the younger they are, like they have the gift of time. Like this is the time to explore. And it's so important, I think, to have a mentor who can kind of engage you and challenge you. I think there's no replacement for a one-on-one, personalized relationship that you have with a mentor. So that's just been my experience. I've been in this industry for a long time. I've been a classroom teacher. I've been, working with students one-on-one, and I can see the difference in how that relationship evolves over the time that you have in one-on-one meetings. And I think that's really what was essential to the student success is that, like, as we were talking about it in conversations, like we were able to develop this idea that even she didn't realize that she had, and, her other conversations hadn't helped her really land on. So I think that's been, I think, the most rewarding part of my, you know, work that I do is like talking to kids and helping them discover what they love to do. And the younger they are, the better, in my opinion, because then it's like
Totally.
wide open, right? So yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. And wouldn't you say, I think one big thing that I've noticed, and I know that you specialize as well heavily in writing and English skills. I'd love for you maybe to share with the parents. A lot of parents think, what's the big deal? It's just some essays, what's so hard about this? One trend I've noticed in the admissions process is that students' writing skills have shifted and changed since their writing skills are not what they used to be. So maybe can you share a little bit about how editing in our process and, you know, I know you've probably also read thousands of essays yourself, but let's talk a little bit in depth about where we really help a student stand out from a writing perspective. You helped her, the student we're talking about, heavily with figuring out the theme, but you can have a theme and still not write very nicely. And that's me being very polite about it. So, do you mind sharing a little bit about how a lot of times with our STEM students, writing emotionally may not be their strong suit and where college shortcuts comes in?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's key. Colleges kind of know your profile and your background. And so it's really like a chance to get your personality and your voice across. And that's a challenge for most high school students, I think, because they haven't explored that before. And speaking as a former English teacher, we lean a lot into academic writing, but not really a lot into personal writing or narrative or that sort of writing. So it's been really key to like have somebody working one-on-one with the students to like make sure that they can polish their writing, and not just polish it in terms of like grammar and all the usual stuff you would expect, but more like bring out their voice and their energy. um, for instance, with this student, we went through several drafts. We started from one place, and this is quite common, with students. You start from one place, we brainstormed some ideas. We tried one idea, but it just didn't allow her to really like I you couldn't hear her through, the story. And so we switched gears a little bit and we landed on a little bit more of a personal story that we tied together at the end with like her bigger picture vision. But that story really crystallized the whole essay because she was really able to bring her personality out, her personal experiences, her family, like a lot of themes that ended up um, really bringing her to life, like off the page. Um,
Absolutely. Yeah, and I do feel like with when it comes to these types of students, the writing to me is where we really shine heavily. Di, can you also share a little bit about, for the parents that are here early on with their students that are seventh and eighth grade that may not know what they want to do? Can you share a little bit about just like mentorship and helping students working on projects or research papers and how um, how rewarding it really can be. And you can reference the student if you'd like there. But just sharing a little bit about what that's like when you start with like day one versus like month 12 and what that's like when you see that with the student.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you kind of see them grow up a little bit, right? Like from
Totally.
some of the middle schoolers I've worked with, like all the way through high school, you really do see them, grow into themselves. Just so rewarding. I think with the younger students, especially, like the sky's the limit. They're so open and curious, and this is the time for them to explore. And so it's been really fun to just brainstorm like projects, and like there's no like constraints on, and especially in middle school, like not as many constraints on your time, but also on any ideas that you have about what you need to do. And so it's a lot more explorative, which is really, really great. And then I think that in schools, even the best schools, like they don't have the bandwidth for this kind of in-depth exploration and intellectual like challenges. So I think that's been really, really key. I can think of a few projects that I've worked with students on, a few research papers, but even like more creative projects, like like doing some of the engineering challenges online or things like that. So like it can be very hands-on. It doesn't just have to be like staring at a computer or doing research. It can be fun. I had a student who did like a music portfolio, and then wrote a paper about it. So it can be really explorative, especially with the younger kids. So that's
Yeah. Absolutely. And just to end, I think for both of us, and I'll speak for myself, not for you, but I feel like when I created College Shortcuts, it was a solution that I wish I had growing up with parents who didn't go to school here. My dad went to IIT. I had very intelligent parents, but growing up and navigating this educational system, um, and I know I come from North India, different cultures sometimes in South India, but I know South Indians really do also are passionate about education. Would you say that the same thing is why you're also so passionate about this as well?
100%. Yeah. I've been in education my whole life. Like I've always known that I wanted to be a teacher, I wanted to work with kids because it's been such an important value of mine. But like the part of the reason why I transitioned away from the classroom was because I really enjoyed like the one-on-one relationships and mentorship that, yeah, like, absolutely. Like I wish I had had, when I was in high school, but also I want all students to, kind of have that. So that's, yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. I totally agree. Well, thank you so much for joining. It's so nice to have you on. And I really appreciate you taking the time to like really be able to share and be able to just talk about your experience. So thanks for joining because I think it's so important for people to know we're real people behind real screens that really do deeply care about our students. So thank you so much.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks.
Awesome. Well, this is a perfect segue, guys, into the part of the webinar that I really wanted to share with you guys, which is really about setting an intention. You know, Daya is a great example on my team. We have incredible women that are, master's, PhD levels that are all passionate about helping our students get to that next stage. Um, and so I want us to kind of think about that when where energy flows is where attention goes. And so I want tonight to be kind of a moment to take a minute and figure out how can we align our energy and frequency to attract the right opportunities. And the reason why I say that is because it's very easy to come across a teenager and you just kind of bombard them and ask them, what do you want to do? What do you want to do? What are you interested? What are you interested in? And the energy they're in is, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. And so that energy of I don't know tends to attract not a lot of very clear opportunities. And we really want to focus on releasing what doesn't really serve you anymore. Um, and what I mean by that is fear, anxiety, stress, feeling like nothing's possible, and really shift that education experience, like Diane and I were talking about, from stress to passion and joy, where it feels limitless when we work with our students one on one, because the world is our oyster at 13 and 14 years old. And how do we build those fun projects? I had a student, and the part about like watching the kid grow up is real for us because for you guys, you're the parent. You have to make sure they're fed, they sleep, they go to school, you have to make sure you see them every single day. For us, we see them, every few weeks, at least 2 to 3 times a month, and we watch them grow, literally physically grow on the computer screen. So, for example, from 7th to 8th grade, I watched like one of my students. He started with, I think I'm interested in something technical, but I don't know, to writing a research paper about robotics and manufacturing and AI. And I asked him, like, at the end of our year together, I'm like, hey, we've done this project, you did this nonprofit project, you built your website, we've done a few things together. How's it going? And he's like, honestly, I'm learning so much through this experience and I really enjoy it. And he's about to go into 9th grade, like he's about to become a little man. And I got to be there for that, and I think that's how all of our mentors feel, is that we're watching this iterative process of growing up happen while also impacting them, but helping them to shift from, I don't know what I want. I don't like my school. I don't enjoy what I'm doing. I don't know what I want to do, to finding their passion and being really clear about what they're interested in. So I want to talk about energy in general because all of us are made of energy. And I know a lot of us on this call have a certain background and come from a certain spiritual background as well. And I really do believe in that. And I infuse a lot of that into college shortcuts with our team and our processes and how we want our students to feel. And I will say that I don't know if you've felt lately, but the planets have kind of been in retrograde. The new year's been a bit turbulent. The collective energy with the news has been a little intense. And there's no doubt about that kind of feeling. But instead of, I really feel like, and maybe it's just me, but I do know planets are shifting actually this next week and things are going out of retrograde. And I know that things are getting better. And even in that rocky shift, still can also be stuff that comes up that's not great. But I think it's time to kind of realign and figure out, for my parents on the line, what do you want to release this year? And this may sound like a very odd question to ask, but think about it. Like, are there dynamics with your student that aren't working? What new vision do you want? Is it something where you're like, hey, I want this to be an enjoyable school year? I want to spend what we call magical moments with our family. How do I create those? Um, you know, and when we shift our vibration, we really do shift our reality. just getting into a fight with your spouse, and it just completely derails your day, right? Like we all know that energetically, if we're in a weird place, it takes a lot to get our vibe back up. Could be a fight with your teenager. My parents and I fought all the time as a teenager, and I think what I really want to create in this webinar is hold on, take a moment, take a pause, and let's see how we can do things differently. And so, what I want to talk about is kind of talking about the education experience. So, the current system pushes you to operate in this mode: stress, test scores, anxiety, and constant comparison. I grew up in a house, and by the way, totally love my parents, just to be very clear, but it was very normal in our culture where siblings would be compared constantly. And it's actually not very healthy because kids are all very different, even if they're born from the same parent. Um, and so, instead of or comparing between friends or classmates. So the current system pushes for this kind of rat race experience. Um, and what we believe, and Daya touched on this as well, is that what we really need instead, if you want to become a lifelong learner, or if you want to excavate and discover your passion, because it doesn't just hit you on the top of the head, like boom, I found out I want to be an educator. That's not how it always works, right? Like you kind of take your pathway and you figure out where you want to be. What we really need is passion, curiosity, and creativity and joy. Because if you don't enjoy it, it's not fun. And I don't know how to say this, but there's enough stress and stuff going on as adults. Like we want our kids to enjoy their childhood. You only get this once. So how do we create an educational experience for them that makes them really feel that they're creating a life of meaning, alignment, and success? And from this place, and I'm being very clear with you on this, from this place, it is effortless and easy to build a narrative. Easy. When I have a student that's operating from this energetic level, opportunities come like that. Summer, internships, college acceptances. They know where they want to go, they know what they want to do, and they're confident and clear. That is the place where I think is the part that's missing in the admissions process. Um, and instead of going from survival mode, which I know a lot of people can be in, let's get empowered around this process. And so, what I will say is the big things that I like to share are one, how do we remove limiting beliefs? How do we take out toxic environments? How do we take out unnecessary stress? I'll give you examples for a student. For example, this can be, oh, I'm just not good at math. Is that true? Okay, toxic environments, hanging out with kids that are not really sharp or not good. You are who you hang out with. Unnecessary stress, super overly stressed about classes or taking an extracurricular that doesn't really work with your time management because it's way too many hours and doesn't really relate to maybe what you're passionate about and it's dropping your grades, might need to do a reset. Magnetic mindset, attracting the right people, mentors, and opportunities. It's kind of why you're here today. Finding the right people around your dinner room table that's going to help your kid get to that next level. It takes a village to raise a kid. It's not just you guys. It takes a lot more. That's why we have school teachers and counselors and college admissions consultants and all these different people to help mentor a student. Because let me tell you something, and I'm learning this the hard way. Sometimes you're not the point of leverage in influencing somebody. Have you ever experienced, for example, for my moms out there or dads, where your parents, which I know a lot of parents still have opinions, even if you're a full blown adult, says like, "Is that how you're going to brush your hair? Is that what you're going to wear?" Okay, so probably not the best strategy, but it is sometimes the only leverage point people have is just their parent. Versus if you have a friend or a mentor who's like, hey, you know, I learned over time that first impressions are a one-time opportunity. So when I learned that and I understood when I walked into rooms, if I looked a certain way and I felt a certain way and I felt that I fit in, doors opened. That person may have more leverage to influence the person that's listening. And so really finding the right people around. I think the biggest thing that we hear over and over from parents, and I know Daya agrees with this, is that sometimes parents will reach out to us and be like, how are you getting my kid to do X, Y, Z? I'm like, because sometimes they need someone separately and different to hear what you have to say. And you can be blue in the face trying to yell your point, knowing that you're totally right, but they don't hear you anymore. And that's a hard thing to face. Um, it's really hard. And I think it's because we forget that sometimes we need outside perspective. And so having the right people around, mentors and opportunities matter. I myself have mentors. I'll share with you. So I go to the gym. Recently, I unfortunately injured my knee a little bit, and I realize I'm old now. But I go to the gym, and I decided this year that I would hire a personal trainer like at least once a week. This trainer kicks my butt. I didn't realize that when I was working out, I was like slowly walking on the treadmill, lifting weights half the amount and calling it a workout. And I wasn't getting results. I mean, I really wasn't. And I thought it would be good enough because, hey, I'm here. I made the effort. But if you want to be Serena Williams, Simone Biles, or Pete Sampras, I know I'm aging myself there, they're not walking into the gym walking on the treadmill. They are perfecting it with the coach. They're perfecting their swing. They're perfecting their jumps. Um, they're pushing through the pain and the difficulty that can happen. So having the right mentor matters. I have a mentor who runs a business way more larger than mine in a different industry who I meet once a month, every month for lunch. And we talk about everything from personal life to work life to business and everything else. I recommend even for parents to have that. It can make a huge difference. And the reason I share that is because, for example, even on this call, that seventh grade parent, if they had a friend that had an 11th grade parent, and let's say they had like a blowout fight with their seventh grader, that 11th grade parent can be like, oh, I had that fight. And yeah, this is how I'd kind of go about that and kind of walk you off the ledge. So, big thing to have the right people. It can change your mindset and honestly, it can change your life. And opportunities that come, I'll tell you, my mentor offered a huge opportunity to me that I would have never had. And I'd said, hey, this is something I'm dealing with, and I kind of want to do this. I want to invest in something like this. And they're like, oh, yeah, you should look into this. And boom, I had an opportunity. And because of my relationship, I told other female entrepreneurs about it because they didn't hear about it either. So the world just keeps giving if you have the right connections and aligned action. You can have all of this, but if you don't take action, nothing really happens. So navigating the system with clarity, confidence, and strategy matters. All of our students are very clear when they start working with us what they're doing, what we want them to complete, and where they're going. So where they start versus where they finish is light years ahead of the student who's still saying, I don't know, I'm not sure, or the person walking slowly on the treadmill. Hopefully, I'll have a six pack by the end of this year. Who knows? All I'm saying is the goal is there, and I put the right coach in place, and I put the right meeting times in place, and it's on my calendar. If it's not on your calendar, you don't do it. It's truth. It's just truth. So, are you ready as a family to create the future you desire? And so, I want to ask these questions. And if you've got a journal or a piece of paper or a computer, which I think you do, or a phone, while you're watching this, I want you to ask these questions and honestly answer them. Don't answer them according to what you perceive. I want you to answer and based on reality. For example, in my case, I don't have a six pack. I have a very shy six pack, right? Like I have nowhere near one, but that would be a reality point, just not there yet. So, and that's just my personal opinion of what I'm dealing with, right? But I'm going to tell you according to this. So, take a deep breath and ask yourself these questions. Do you feel 100% confident that your kid's application is going to really stand out among the 58,000? Or are you just hoping hard work and grades will get them noticed? Second, does your child truly know what their passion is and how to build a strong personal brand around it? Or are they just checking off the boxes, looking like everybody else? And what I mean by that is, for example, in our case, we read thousands of assessments, students doing taekwondo, karate, piano, tennis, speech and debate, robotics, Model UN, HOSA, and South Asian Society. Every single one of them. So, oh, and they volunteer at a hospital, of course. So, all I'm saying is, do they know how to build a strong personal brand that is unique and different? Third, are you overwhelmed? Because if you're coming from an overwhelmed perspective energetically, your anxiety will energetically run through your child. I hate to say it, but it's very true. Um, and how are you staying calm, relaxed, and building the right team around you? Is your child thriving or just surviving in this high pressure system? What if they could approach this process with clarity, joy, and a strategy that works? They walk through with confidence and know who they truly are. And then are you leaving your child's future to just chance, to a system? Or are you investing in expert guidance to give them the best shot? So I hope you guys take a minute to kind of note these down, ask these questions, so you can kind of do your own energetic check on where you are on these. Rate yourself, write the true answers, write one being not so great, 10 being we're totally on point with this. Because it's really important to sometimes gauge yourself. For me, with my health journey, I gauge myself based on my blood work. Those are the numbers. Whether I have the six pack or not, if my blood work is solid, I know that I have data improved through data, my numbers, and that's what truly matters. So I have figured out for me what is that leverage point for me and where am I from a 10 or a 1 in that process and what are the steps I'm taking to get from point A to point B. And so I just want to make sure you're thinking through that. So I want to share a little bit about how we work with families, two ways specifically. Mentorship, which is sixth grade all the way through 11th grade, helping in mentorship. I'll kind of walk through what that is. And then 11th grade onwards, once we're done building that beautiful personal brand, the college application process. And in this, we are energetically high vibe as a team. You can see I brought Daya on. It is like 9:45 p.m. her time. She's in Eastern time zone in the most competitive part of the US in the Northeast. And she wanted to be here today to really ensure that you guys got a really good feeling about who we are and you know who we are behind our team. So our mentors are top notch, as you can see. We focus in on things like academics, taking a look at your test scores, what is your extracurricular and career path, what community service are you doing, what summer activities are you planning, also building emotional maturity and confidence. These are the soft skill side, time management. And we do focus in if there's scholarships or things they should look at as well. So, from our perspective, when you look at the mentorship program, we work with you year after year, building projects, research papers, different things, but also really shaping that theme. Because without the theme, you can look scattered. You can have a beautiful 10-page resume, but it's stuffed with stuff. It's kind of like when you walk into your closet and you can't find a dress. Oh, the most painful experience versus when everything's like color organized and you've taken a moment to kind of touch through things and does that even fit anymore? Or is that from 10 years ago? Does that have snags? So, mentorship, we really kind of cut through the noise and you pick the best items. When it comes to the application process, we focus in on everything starting with where is your next home? Where are you energetically going to thrive? Where are you going to meet your people? I'm a total nerd. Daya, as you can tell, is a total nerd. We love being in competitive, hard and like hard schools with other people that are thinking about really big nerdy problems. Like seriously, we're the nerdiest people you will meet. I cannot even tell you. I remember I was at a party, a Galentine's party this year, and someone said, Neha, everyone knows you as the person that if we have a question about something, you have an answer to it, or you will find a resource, or you know somebody. I'm that girl. And you probably know someone in your own network like that too. And that's who I am. I'm the problem solver. I'm the operator. I'm the person that likes to plan years in advance for things. And so when you want someone on your team for college admissions, you want someone who likes to plan and break things into tiny pieces and really make sure that you're hitting every step and milestone exactly to deadline. To give you a sense, when I go on a trip, sometimes I buy that wardrobe or the clothes that I need 4 months in advance. I'm that person. So I know I sound like intense when I say that because I know there's the opposite of me. And I see them in my family that write their whole world on Post-its, don't use the calendar, and just kind of go somehow with the way life works. And they tend to procrastinate sometimes, and sometimes they miss deadlines, and sometimes they miss appointments, or they never call people back, or they never schedule the things they're supposed to. And that is one way of operating. When it comes to the college admissions process, you can't operate that way at all. It doesn't work. You have to be a planner and you have to plan in advance. And so in the college application process, we are already starting the process. All of our 11th graders started in January, and we're building their school list. We're helping them to format their resumes and organize them properly. We're working with students on letters of recommendation strategy. We're working with them in the summer and over the next few months over their essays. I explained very much in detail how that works, from brainstorm to sometimes you get the first essays aren't as good. Ugh, right? It's kind of like the stuff that comes out of your brain and you need a moment before the real jewels come out until you realize, like, oh, this is really where it's coming from. This is what truly matters. It takes time to get there. So we really work on them on those essays all the way up until August. And then we work with students on editing to final draft. So on our end, just to give you a sense, we do have an AI tool that I have built out that has actually taken about 15 years of essays that have gotten into Ivy League schools of top students, and it knows what are good essays that we will be deploying this year for our students. Our editors will still hand edit every single word, helping specifically with um, really ensuring every line is perfect through grammar, through content, through everything else. But we'll also be running it through AI a little bit just to ensure content, everything makes sense based on thousands of essays that have gotten in. So I think that's a really incredible data point that we offer. And Deepthi, hopefully I answered your question you asked about mentoring 10th graders. Absolutely. That's exactly what mentorship is for. In terms of this process as well, for the application, we help to manage the process, ensure that it's all complete. We ensure things are done at least 2 months before deadline if you follow our methodology and process and start on time. To give you a sense, on average, our students are writing a minimum of 15 essays to upwards of 55 to 85 essays, depending on how many schools they're applying to. Some schools can have upwards of 11 essays, some can have 2. It just depends. But the biggest part is step 2. What is your unique angle and how do we help you to build that? And so today I want to tell you, if you guys are interested in working with us, this is for all new families. Please go to, and I'll put it in the chat, collegeshortcuts.com/apply. And also what I'm excited to share is I also have Jeff here on my team, who has been with me for over 5 years, has 10 plus years of experience speaking to thousands of families in the admissions process. He also has 2 kids at top universities himself. And so he conducts our assessments. He is our head of enrollment that works with you, talks about your current status of where you are in this process, gives pointers, and then talks about what we can do. So I will be offering a bonus at the end. But Jeff, I'd love for you to take a minute and introduce yourself and share a little bit about yourself and what you do, and go from there.
And thanks for having me here, and nice to see everybody here. I see some folks here that I've chatted with already as well. I've been doing this, as Neha said, for over 10 years, and I'm cut from the same cloth as Neha. My background happens to be pulmonary medicine and collegiate education, but my life for the last 40 years has all been about energy. So it's no surprise that Neha and I found each other. My Duke graduate thinks I've lost my mind. I mean, Western trained in medicine, and to me, it's all about energy. So the calls are important. I'm happy to answer questions. I'm happy to look at your child, figure out where you are, try to come up with an understanding of where you're trying to go. And if you're in 11th grade right now, and Neha can correct me if she disagrees, it's really not the time to be trying to create that whirlwind passion project. You're less than 6 months from the application process. If you're in 11th grade, you need to spend the next 6 months really putting the application together so it is not disingenuous. It has to have integrity. If you're in 6th or 7th or 8th or 9th or 10th grade, plenty of time. Yes, yesterday is when you have to start building that story. So everything comes together. So I'm just setting realistic boundaries. I talk to so many 11th graders that say, hey, I have to create this life-changing project. It doesn't look authentic. You're better off adding to the resume, making sure it's congruent, but making sure at the same time that you really spend this time focusing on the application so it's extraordinary. I'm happy to talk with you. If you've just got questions, you can email me directly as well, but anything that we can do here, we are real people. As Neha said, it's 10 o'clock on the East Coast. Neha and I email each other and Telegram 11:30, 12 at night on weekends. And she's like, I'm like, why are you emailing or texting me at 11:30? And she's like, why are you answering? And this is just what we do. So we are real people. We pick up our phones. So that's part of what makes us different. I mean, beyond the 25,000 kids and statistics that are second to no one, we truly do care. And we are really, that's why we're here. So again, I look forward to chatting with anybody that is here. And of course, the folks that I've talked with in the past, we're going to get back together and answer the rest of those questions. Thanks for having me, Neha. I'm going to give that back to you.
Absolutely. Jeff. Thanks so much for being here and sharing that. I want to share one here. I want to let you know that if you guys schedule a call and you do end up signing up with us at College Shortcuts within the next week, we'll be giving away a $250 gift card. And that's because we just want to do it as a thank you for you showing up here, being here, giving us your time. But we really mean what we mean here. It's really about energy. And if you feel that you've connected with us in any way or any of the people that have spoken tonight, take action. The call for our assessment is completely free with Jeff. So if you book it in the next 24 to 48 hours, you will qualify towards getting that gift card. I always love to end on time because I'm always really particular about time here, as always, and really valuing everyone's time. I know everyone's very busy, but I really believe that all of you guys are the action taker parents and families. That's why you're here on a Sunday evening. And so I hope you take that next step with us so that we can really help impact your child's admissions journey. What I'd like to do is leave the last few minutes for any questions you may have. Please type them in the chat box, and I'd be more than happy to answer any questions you guys have here. And if you are interested in scheduling, I've put the link in the chat here at collegeshortcuts.com/apply. That's where you can definitely put your information. And please take the time when you do go through that process of clicking that link, find a time that works for you. Show up to the call. We reserve that time. A lot of times I actually jump on those calls sometime as well. But Jeff also reserves that time on his calendar. So please respect our time as well and show up if you're going to schedule a time. Also, make sure to fill out the assessment in detail. I read every assessment. It gets emailed into my inbox. Jitendra, great. He said, I've already applied. Okay, awesome. So, great. You're scheduled for tomorrow. Woohoo. Okay. It's great. And then if you need to, Jitendra is having a bit of a scheduling issue. Jeff, if you can message him, please message.
And let me point that out too, Neha.
Yeah.
If I mean, we are crazy busy here. If you guys see that there is not a specific time that is on the calendar, just email me. I mean, it's not a big deal. Sometimes things are blocked off for other people. I keep time reserved and off the calendar for those situations. So just email me directly. There it is, Jeff at collegeshortcuts.com, and we will coordinate calendars. I promise you that. Thanks for saying that, Neha.
Absolutely. Yeah, perfect. So yeah, Jeff at collegeshortcuts.com. You can shoot him an email. As you know, we're up all the time working on things. And yeah, and then in the assessment, I just want to share, please make sure to fill it out in detail of the extracurriculars your student is in. The questions I put those together, and it's really important. It's really important to, to really ensure that, we know exactly where you're at in the process. Jitendra's asking, am I too early as a 7th grader? My answer is no. You are not too early as a 7th grader. If you are wanting to unlock your child's potential at an earlier age, and the reason why I share this is because when you start earlier, you have if you really think about it, you start in seventh and eighth grade, you have an additional 200 hours towards building projects and resumes a high schooler does. Any parent with an 11th grader, tell me in the chat, how much time does your kid really have? Seventh graders have ample time to build projects, build websites, do things. So that's really big if you think about it. I think the part that most people don't think about is like seventh and eighth graders can make such big impact at such a young age. And I think a lot of people forget how when you have a lot more time and you have a mentor and you have time to figure out what you're interested in, you tend to have a more interesting story. Just like Jeff was sharing, like when you're an 11th grader saying like, I need to create something that's like world renowned and amazing. Okay, like sounds like resume stuffing. But if you start in seventh and eighth grade and you're like, hey, like I'm really interested in this, this, and this, and it's really awesome. It's really great. I can show you an example actually of, for example, my niece. I actually tested out what it would be like if you start with um, a student as early as 5 years old. So a lot of you might be like, what? I'm going to share it with you. Let me share my screen here. So this is Anya today. Anya's very old in that photo, just to give you a sense. She used to be 5. So she has now worked on an e-waste drive. She's started different revolutions. She's done community cleanups. She's been on the board of different things in her neighborhood around being green and doing things in the area. She's like on a conservation board. Um, yeah, Gumbo Limbo Coastal Stewards. She was part of that. She's done a lot of different things. She's also been creating e-waste proclamations with mayors in different cities. She's been featured on the Boca Raton Tribune. She's written at least 2 to 3 books. She won the Youth Environmental Excellence Award. Now, these photos are all of her old. I'm going to zoom in here. It's not a great photo, but that's Anya. That's my little Anya. Look how small she is. And I think you can tell there's a big age gap here. It's about 10 years. So when you're asking, is it too early to unlock a student's potential? No, it's never too early. It's actually way more fun when they're younger because they don't have pushback. I mean, parents of 11th graders can tell you there's a very different teenager you're dealing with than a tween. It's gets very spicy 9th grade onwards. And so buy-in with a teenager is very hard. But when you start 7th and 8th grade or 6th grade or 5th grade, you've just still got this wonderful, wonderful person that is still open to listening and interested in what you have to say. And they have extra time because they're not trying to fit in all their academic homework. So getting started makes a difference when you're early on. Now, I don't mean to say this to say like, oh, if you're in 9th or 10th grade, don't start or you're too late. It's not that. We can do wonders even with a student in 9th and 10th grade in the process. Jenny, in terms of payment options, that's a great question for Jeff. When you guys do your call or email him, he can definitely talk through options and to see what we can do to make things work for you, of course, no problem. So we can absolutely do that. So the questions I've gotten are about is it too early? And then do you have payment options? So I hope I've answered those 2 questions. Deepthi had asked, do you work with 10th graders? My student really needs help with what to do. The answer is yes. We help students to build projects and do things that are different. And if you want to read more about what we do, please go to collegeshortcuts.com. You can absolutely see here under our one-on-one under services, talking exactly what we do, exactly why we do mentorship, how passion works, what it typically looks like at home where the parents like, what do you want to be? And usually what you find in your life is that it's the things that are out of exposure and experiences and outside of your comfort zone, things that you're not comfortable with is where you find true information about what you actually like or don't like. We really do believe that when you have a mentor in place, it makes such a difference in how your experience goes. Question about mentorship. So our mentorship is, oh, and Deepthi, thank you for the hearts. That's so sweet. I love you too. Archana asked, how does your mentorship work? So all of our mentorship at this time is all one-on-one. with our coaches. We found that the one-on-one approach is incredible with our students. And so here we've written out from month 1 to 12 exactly how it works and how the curriculum is designed. To give you guys a sense, this is actually based heavily off of my work at UPenn. I was in the UPenn Wharton and Educational Entrepreneurship Program, where we learned a lot about how to effectively build curriculum for learners. So a lot of my Ivy League stuff is actually infused into here. We also did a capstone project there as well, so really building it all. We also have case studies here with Ria, Maya, and different students. And then application fast track for my 11th grade parents. This is specifically where you'll find information about what we do, what our steps are. And, in terms of, our testimonials, we've been doing this a long time. And so, here recently I just decided, even though it's not totally pretty, but we got our admissions letters from some of our students and I couldn't help myself. So I pasted some of them in here. We've got Dartmouth, Harvard, Cornell, Stanford, lots of different students. And then you can also hear videos from students we've worked with. You can see even more testimonials all the way through here, as well as our YouTube page. And then of course our press page, exactly showing all the things we've done and, where I've been featured as well. So, take some time to read about us. I know this is maybe your first experience with us live, but I wanted to at least share and navigate you through our website so you can take some time to read. I know in today's world, we're going really fast and we don't always take the time to read. Set aside 15 to 20 minutes and just kind of go through the website and read through things and really get familiar with what kind of our approach is, which is very unique and different than what you typically see in the industry. I've been around the block, like I said, for over 15 years. I've been doing this. I've seen companies come and go. I've seen companies get really large and end up shutting down. I've seen tiny companies that exist that don't work with a ton of students. I'd call College Shortcuts, in my opinion, really a boutique agency. As a CEO, I'm very hands-on. There was a point in time where College Shortcuts existed to scale, and I've gotten to the point now where we just want our perfect 100 to 150 students max per year and really keep it tight, just because we know that we want to just pour love on each student that we work with. So really much more of a smaller agency in that capacity with all the data and information of what we've worked on for the last 15 years. So please go ahead and schedule that call. I do have the list of people who have attended here. And so everyone that books their calls and does sign up will get the $250 gift card within the next few weeks. We can get that sent over to you. And so for everybody, thank you so much for being here. It's been a pleasure being with you this evening. And thank you so much for your time. And we look forward to chatting with you and helping your student get into the college of their dreams. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Thanks, Neha.